This is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac, 28 minutes of stories about Ukrainian life. I'm your reporter Stefan Andrusiak. Vitayu vas. Welcome to an episode first aired September of 2018. It was recorded near Hamilton and in Windsor, Ontario. Antonina Kumka teaches at Dr. Frank J. Hayden Secondary School in Burlington. Dr. Miron Hlinka is with the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at the University of Windsor. We'll hear from each, but first, to count us into episode 123 of Nasha Kasha, here's Ron Cahoot and Buria with the song Count to 20. It's from the album Cebula.
We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. There's a special magic word that you should know. Oh, have you heard? The magic word that you should know is Nightchat. Nightchat. We take the numbers 1 to 9 and we put Nightchat right behind. And now we all know how to count to Dvajak. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. 11 equals 1 plus 10, and we all know that 1's Oden. So 11 in Ukrainian's Odenaichai. 12 is next, that's 2 plus 10. 2 is Dva, so now we can say 12 in Ukrainian is Dvanaichai. 13 equals 10 plus 3, and so by now you all can see that 13 in Ukrainian is Trenaichai. Chotanaichit, that's 14, and 5 plus 10 equals 15, so 15 in Ukrainian is Pyatnaichai. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. 16 is the next in line, we know that's 10 plus 6. She's nice, it is the word we use, cause she's we know is 6. 17 and 18 are the next two we should know. Simnited and then Visimnited, just one more to go. One more number's all we need, then 20, here we come. 9 plus 10 is 19, once we learn it then we're done. 9 is Devyat, that we know, so 19's Devyat Nightchat. So now we all can count to 20, yes, all the way to Dvajak. Yeah. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian. We say Dvajak, that means 20. We say Dvajak, that means 20 in Ukrainian.
Frank Hayden Secondary School in Burlington is part of a municipal complex in which the school's library is open to the public. Students are encouraged to eat their lunches while studying here. In a lively common area, one math teacher was spending a few minutes of her lunch hour speaking with me before having to rush off to attend a staff meeting.
Antonina Kumka. I'm a teacher. I'm the president of the UCC, Ukrainian Canadian Congress Hamilton branch, and of Canada-Ukraine International Assistance Fund.
Where were you born? Tell me about your young life.
I was born in Chernivtsi, which is southwestern Ukraine, Bukovina, as they know it, almost 34 years ago, and immigrated to Canada in 2006. But prior to that, I was visiting Canada a few times.
What did you study in Ukraine?
I went to university majoring in English and English literature and language, and my second pathway was economics and business management. That's where I had lots of math, and as a result, I had 2 degrees, and one of them allowed me to be a teacher, and the other one gave me the knowledge to be able to teach math.
Was it hard regaining credentials once you came to Canada?
It wasn't as bad as they said it would be. I heard many stories where they were saying that none of the diplomas from Ukraine were recognized or they were degraded and so on. In my case, they adjusted my credentials to an equal credential in Canada, and it was a Master of Education. It took me about a year because of all the paperwork and bureaucracy that I had to go through, but in general it wasn't that difficult or challenging.
You know, we talk about credentials not being recognized, but I know of families in London that take their children to Ukraine in the summertime to catch up on math because they don't think that the schools do a good enough job in Ontario.
Unfortunately, that's what I'm seeing, and it has not been, it's actually been, I've been teaching math for 10 years now here, and I have seen the decline in the way the math is being taught and the knowledge of the students. So compared to what the curriculum's like in Ukraine, even if you just compare the textbooks, what they teach here in grade 9, they teach in grade 7 in Ukraine. Identical concepts. So there is a discrepancy. It is more intense in Ukraine. Not to say that it's a good thing. Some people say that they're being too tough on them in Ukraine, but if kids can do it, why not? Like they're able to handle it, and they're not suffering.
Antonina, you wrote a book about math.
It's more of a guideline to students who are going from grade 7, 8 to grade 9, 10. Being a high school teacher and teaching a lot of grade 9s and 10s, I've seen that a lot of them have no idea what to expect in a math class in grade 9 and 10. They're used to playing games and taking it lightly in elementary and middle school, and when they come, they're a little bit shocked.
It's called Math Your Way to Success?
Yes.
And what is that way? What is that path?
So one of the main things from my experience is that they know the basics, like the foundation of math. It is important to be able to operate integers, fractions, raise numbers to exponents and things like that. Unfortunately, in the past few years, we have moved away from that in our instructional methods, but practice shows that you cannot really do without it. You cannot build a rocket ship without knowing what the parts of it are. So that's how it works.
How did you get involved in Ukrainian life here in the Hamilton area?
At first, I was just doing things in Hamilton because that's where I live. So I was teaching in a Saturday Ukrainian school, and then I was helping at churches and different other events, at different events. But later on, when the crisis in Ukraine started, when Maidan happened, I felt like I should do more and could do more, and I just went to Toronto and asked how I can join a bigger movement. And then I joined Euromaidan with UCC Toronto, and from then on started doing all kinds of different things that support Ukraine and community here.
One of the things that you're involved in is telling Walmart, I see online, that they are wrong for selling garments with former Soviet Union insignias on it. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, that's an interesting initiative that was started actually by one of my good friends and very respectable activist. His name is Markus Kolga, and he's the president of Estonian Council of Canada. Of course, Estonia has been through the same thing that we're going through, except they never had war, but they have the same sentiment as us towards the aggressor and the country that occupies everyone around them. He brought to my attention that Walmart's selling stuff with Soviet symbols on their merchandise. We investigated it together a little bit, and then we found that it's actually not Walmart directly that does it, but different companies or third-party sellers that use the Walmart platform. So that was a good thing, but still we wanted even that to be removed.
This is online.
Yes.
You won't find this in store.
No. And Walmart does not sell it directly. That was just the use of Walmart platform for selling those things. So we decided that we have to start an action, and it started rolling, and people were complaining individually, and we wrote letters from different organizations, and even Baltic state governments came on board, and they sent their letters to the store, and they removed all merchandise that has that depicted on them.
You have to go. Can you just tell me what is the hottest topic in the Hamilton area in the Ukrainian community as far as initiatives or needs? Maybe it's a social need here rather than in Ukraine or vice versa.
In Hamilton, I think like in other areas that are not Toronto or GTA, one of the biggest things is getting the new people to come together and uniting the community. In some areas, I know that the community is actually decreasing. In Hamilton, it's not the case. We have about 20,000 Ukrainians in Hamilton area who identify as Ukrainians or of Ukrainian descent. So our main goal right now is to bring them together and to unite them and interest them in the Ukrainian life.
You were a member, you were a candidate for the Conservative Party. Can you tell me about that? Is that still active?
That's a funny part because I was never a candidate, and whoever put that information on the website was wrong. Let's put it that way.
Well, maybe sometime in the future, is there a political possibility here?
Maybe one day, but not right now. Right now, I have no time for that, and that's not where my efforts are.
You're on your way back to school. I'll let you go.
Просто хочу нагадати, що українці в Канаді є потужною силою. Вони повинні об'єднуватись, вони повинні не забувати про своє коріння та хто вони є. І це зробить сильнішими як нас усіх, так і нашу країну тут, і країну, з якої ми походимо.
Antonina's parting words are in Ukrainian. Remember your roots. Remember who you are. Unite. If we do, we will be strong here and in Ukraine.
Дякую вам, Степан.
Here's Natalka Karpa and the song Plus One, Плюс Один.
Ночі, туди, де серце нями, шукає твої очі, кохає до безтями. Мене до себе ніжно, ти знаєш, я звикаю. Коли ти є зі мною, то часу як немає. Коли ти кажеш мила, я тану ніби шовком, і трохи несміливо торкаюсь ненароком. Я дихаю тобою, як дихають повітря, як море, океани зливаються із вітром. Ти мій плюс один у світлі вітри, і десь просто неба. Ти мій плюс один у світі один, на інших вже не треба. Ти мій плюс один, сюжети із картин, де наші дні і ночі. Ти мій плюс один, я так
is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac. We come to you every week from CHRW 94.9 FM on the campus of Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. On CHMR 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland. On CKDU 88.1 FM in Halifax. On Local 107.3 FM in St. John, New Brunswick. On CJLO 1690 AM in Montreal. On CFRC 101.9 FM in Kingston. On CFMU 93.3 FM in Hamilton. On CKMS 102.7 FM in Kitchener-Waterloo. On CKLU 96.7 FM in Sudbury. On CILU 102.7 FM in Thunder Bay. On 101.5 UMFM in Winnipeg. On CFMQ 98.1 FM in Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan. And on CIVL 101.7 FM in Abbotsford, British Columbia. Windsor's University sits at the foot of the Ambassador Bridge. 8,000 trucks and 68,000 travelers cross it daily. It's the busiest U.S.-Canada border crossing of all. Dr. Myron Hlinka's office is on the 9th floor of Lambton Tower. His desk is up against the window.
The Ambassador Bridge looming large over the campus. Do you sit here? Because you can see it right through your window. At night it must be spectacular.
The Ambassador Bridge, which I can see through my window, is spectacular. My research specialty is queuing theory, which is the study of lineups, the mathematical study of lineups. And I have several published papers on lineups, and I did have I've had several students that have done studies on traffic flow over bridges in general, but our model was the Ambassador Bridge. We did a study at one time. They were going to put in something like a fast checkout at a grocery store, and we did an analysis, the student and I. And what we found was that it was not going to work because the express window was going to be blocked. The vehicles were not going to be able to get there. It would clear out and be sitting there empty and not being used. We tried to talk to the people at the bridge. They said they already had a group doing the study and they didn't want anybody else interfering. We knew well in advance it wasn't going to work. They set it up, they ran it for about a month, and then they closed it down. When you cross the border either direction, you have to join one of several lineups. It is not always the best to choose the shortest line. So you have to take other things into consideration. I know one time we crossed the border and my wife said, pick this line, and I looked at another line which was the same length, but the line that I picked had an empty booth right next to it. It wasn't being manned. It wasn't being used. I made my choice, and then the vehicles started moving faster in the line that my wife had told me that I should have picked, and mine wasn't going fast, and mine wasn't going fast. And she was gloating and telling me that I should listen to her more. And just when the vehicle that I would have been right behind was getting near the front, they opened the booth right next to us. I quickly moved my car. I had been leaving a gap so I could quickly move into that open lane. I moved right to the front, and I got through before the other vehicle. And my wife, sort of grumbled at me, saying, "That doesn't count."
How did you know? How did you know that empty booth was a marker of some kind, an indicator?
Well, an empty booth at some point could open. So the other booth that she picked couldn't, because on both sides they were being used. But the one I picked could open. Now, I didn't know that it would. It was just a possibility. And yes, I was lucky. But
do you realize that the road leading to this university is the last exit on the road to the bridge? Had I missed that right turn, I would have been one of those cars in a lineup.
I know there's problems. We've had people coming here to write actuarial exams from out of town, and I had some people about 6 months ago saying we actually found ourselves going over the bridge and we had to come back to get here.
Can you tell me about Ukrainian life in this city? I mean, you grew up in Winnipeg. You have that to compare to. And, of course, can you give me a sense of community here beyond the university?
Windsor is a city of, if you include the suburbs, I guess would get up to about 300,000 in population. In the census, I think there would be somewhat over 10,000 people of Ukrainian ancestry. Most of those people are of mixed ancestry, and though the number that would be of majority Ukrainian ancestry would be much smaller than 10,000. There are two Ukrainian churches in Windsor. There's St. Vladimir's Ukrainian Orthodox Church and St. Vladimir and Olga Ukrainian Catholic Church. The Ukrainian Catholic Church, they built a new one fairly recently, and they sold off the old church. In terms of community organizations, UNO, again, Ukrainian National Federation, and the Ukrainian Women's Organization there are active, and both churches have their own organizations. St. Vladimir Ukrainian Orthodox Church has a museum in the church basement. Both churches sell pierogi and holubchi as fundraisers to help support their churches. There is some interaction with groups in the United States, in Detroit. The Ukrainian Graduates of Detroit and Windsor is a group that is still continuing. I'm a member of that. I was a member of the Ukrainian Canadian Business and Professional Association. My wife and I attend St. Vladimir and Olga Ukrainian Catholic Church. She is Ukrainian Catholic. We sometimes attend St. Vladimir Ukrainian Orthodox Church, where my son likes to sing along with their choir.
Aside from listening to him sing, what's the best part of being Ukrainian in Windsor?
There's a very friendly, open, welcoming community. When you meet people, you find that you have something in common with them, and often it's even more. You know somebody that they know. The connections are strong. The connections are excellent. Just this summer, I had what's called a MITACS students, MITACS. It's a government-funded organization. I had a student I was supervising from China. She was an undergraduate intern. She had a very close friend also who won one of these MITACS awards. Her first name was Marina. She was from Ukraine. Took them on a tour of Windsor, passed by the Ukrainian Credit Union, which might be mentioned. I passed by the Holodomor Monument. We went to the Ukrainian restaurant in Windsor. I also had a student who graduated with a master's in statistics. She graduated in May. Her name was Yelizaveta Chetina. She's from Kiev, still living in Windsor. I think she has a job lined up. So that's the first student that I've had from Ukraine. It's been a nice experience.
Was the experience of teaching or supervising seamless? In other words, were there any stops and starts because of a background in Ukraine and the discipline?
Things are never straightforward. This master's student that I had from Ukraine actually did her undergraduate studies in Hong Kong. There was an agreement between the Ukrainian university and the Hong Kong university where they could go there, get free tuition. The courses were taught in English, so the student would learn some English, and she came away speaking English somewhat and Chinese somewhat, and of course her native Ukrainian.
Thank you very much for your kindness and your hospitality here in your office at University of Windsor.
Thank you, Stepan.
And now a bit of history. Myron's uncle was Anthony Hlinka, a social credit politician who became Member of Parliament for Vegreville, Alberta. He served from 1940 to 1949. Anthony is best remembered for his attempts to reform Canada's immigration laws after World War II, to permit the immigration of displaced persons to Canada, many of whom were Ukrainian. Myron's father, Isidore Hlinka, was a noted biochemist, multiculturalism pioneer, and a community leader. Myron's wife is child psychologist Dr. Lucia Manziuk. Speaking of close relations, American singer-songwriter Lucy Kaplansky's father was a mathematician too. He, Irving Kaplansky, wrote a song. It's about the relationship between the circumference of a circle and its diameter. Any circle, the diameter, the distance from one side of the circle to the direct opposite side, the circumference is the distance around that same circle. If you divide the circumference by the diameter, you're going to get 3.14, roughly. Now, this applies to all circles, every single time. This ratio of the diameter to the circumference is called pi. Pi, not like the pastry, but the Greek letter for P, pi. With her kind permission, here's Lucy Kaplansky singing her father's song about pi.
Through all the bygone ages, philosophers and sages have meditated on the circle's mysteries. From Euclid to Pythagoras, from Gauss to Anaxagoras, their thoughts have filled the library's bulging histories. And yet there was elation throughout the whole Greek nation when Archimedes did his mighty computation. He said, 3, 1, 4, 1, oh my, here's a song they'll sing about pi. Not a sigma or mu, but a well-known Greek letter too. You can have your alphas and your grade 5/8 and omegas for a friend, but that's just what a circle doesn't have a beginning or an end. 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9 is a ratio we don't define. 2 pi times radii gives circumference you can rely. If you square the radius times the pi, you will get the circle space. Here's my song about pi, fit for mathematicians' embrace.
Nasha Kasha is also a podcast. Subscribe for free from the Apple iTunes Store and at most other podcast providers. We do gratefully acknowledge that partial funding for Nasha Kasha is provided by the Taras Shevchenko Foundation and by the Ukrainian Credit Union. Back in a week, God willing, до милої зустрічі за тиждень часу, дорогі слухачі.
3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9 is a ratio we don't define. 2 pi times radii gives circumference you can rely. If you square the radius times the pi, you will get the circle space. Here's my song about pi, fit for mathematicians' embrace.